So today's webinar is a CPD event for our continuous professional development as business advisors. And the topic is preventing overload and burnout. How business advisors can help entrepreneurs to delegate and stay productive. And we've got in the room Nomase Sonqishe, a coach, a professional coach, and Jurgen Banda-Hansmann, who is involved in the Getting Things Done system here in South Africa. And we're looking forward to learning from them. We also have in the room a representative from IBASA. So towards the end of the webinar, when we're done with our CPD topic, we'll talk about IBASA's activities and how you can improve yourself as a professional business advisor through participating in this professional body. But let's start off our conversation with a poll. I'm going to launch a poll. There are two questions in this poll that we would like you to answer. The first is, what portion of your clients are constantly complaining about being stressed and overloaded? I don't want to anticipate what you're going to answer, but please vote there. You'll see it popping up on your screen. All of them, about 3/4, about half, about a quarter, or very little or none. You've got 4 options to vote there. And then the second question, which complaints do you hear most often from your advising clients? You may select up to 3 there. You just see what kind of complaints you are getting. You may select up to 3, and then please vote by the time that you selected those 2. Everyone is voting rapidly here. So it looks like about a quarter of us say that all our clients are complaining constantly about being stressed and overworked, and about half say 3/4. So it's like 3/4 of us are on the webinar here today are more than 75% of the time we get this complaint. We're stressed and overworked, and there are of course causes for that, which we hope will be identifying during our discussion today, and to find solutions in terms of how we can practically help our clients to address that issue. Now, when we ask the second question, I'm going to end the poll by now, so if you haven't voted, quickly vote, please. Okay, we've closed the poll. The second one is, I do not have enough time in the day to get all done, is what 83% of us say our clients are telling us. And then there's a few other things that people are telling us too, around email, around documents that they can't find, about trusting others, and so on. But that scores quite a bit lower down. By far, the overwhelming complaint that we get is that there's not enough time in the day. So let's hear during our webinar today whether time is in fact the determining factor in not getting things done. Or am I preempting something here, Jurgen? Don't want to put words in your mouth. But that is the topic for discussion today. So let's move on from the poll. So Nomase, we'll first turn to you. Okay. Kind of the challenges that we face in helping our clients to think differently about this thing about there's not enough time in the day. Yes. You've got some comments and some guidance for us as business advisors. What can we do to work more productively with our clients around those kind of challenges?
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. I think for me, being a small business entrepreneur myself, it's about time management. So as business advisors, I think what would help is if we could assist the clients to prioritize better. That involves developing new habits, because it has to be a habit. I see that a lot of people say they don't have enough time. So one of the tools that I like speaking or encouraging people to use to prioritize time is the time management matrix by Covey. It's from a book called First Things First, which talks about the 4 quadrants of prioritizations of time management. So there's quadrant 1, which is about all the things that are important and urgent. Quadrant 2, these are all self-explanatory in the interest of time. So the things that we could recommend to them is to first ask them to plot their normal daily activities. just make a list. What is the dominant things that I do in my business? What are the roles that are important in my business? And see if you can plot them by order of importance using this tool. So how much time do you spend doing things on quadrant 1, for instance? The deadlines, the critical things, the people-related things, the immediate action. And then you select those things from your daily list. And then you also check how much time do you spend on quadrant 3. And these are now the urgent calls, the text messages, the last minute scheduling of meetings, and all of that, cancellations. Then you help your client to list those items as well. And then on quadrant 4, hopefully there isn't more than 5% of activities there, because that is the quadrant of non-important. It's the time stealers, the social media. And in quadrant 1, what you will notice is that people that are almost close to burnout, it's because they are operating there. It's because they are always doing things last minute. It's because there's no processes. So we recommend that you should encourage them to really check what are those things that are on quadrant 1, the crises that could be best dealt on quadrant 2. So quadrant 2 is a very quiet space because it is important, but it is not urgent. This is where you create strategies. This is where you plan. This is where family time is. Hopefully there is still some family time for business owners. So you want to encourage them to make sure that they are spending a lot of time there. The challenge with that quadrant is that it doesn't call upon you. You have to determine, you have to make that time to sit and plan. And we know that business owners are at different stages of their businesses. They are at different times of maturity, but as a business advisor, you would be able to assess and help them to plot properly. Because the things that land up also on quadrant 3, you'll find that it was lack of proper planning. So you are hoping that by the time you have assessed, at least realistically, you have captured their realities, that now they will be able to assess which of those items that they can partially delegate to other people, that could delegate fully, that could outsource if it's not their skill to do those items or those roles. So this process of prioritization helps them to assess what are the things that absolutely they have to do by themselves and what are the things that they could delegate to their teams. But delegation on its own is also another tricky thing that I found that business owners struggle with. Because sometimes people want to hand over things willy-nilly. Delegation, if it's delegation, it has to be about assigning responsibilities to the people and making sure they can account for them. But it also means you give them authority or mandate for them to be fully responsible for those items. So the first step there is you assign. You determine what assignment and to whom do you need to delegate that assignment. It can be gradual, depending on the knowledge levels and how important they are. And again, the action there is a product of quadrant 2, the training of your staff, the giving them those roles. Because sometimes people say they don't have time even to delegate, but you have to encourage them to make that time. They will thank you later. So once you have assigned the person, you communicate this assignment. What is it exactly that they need to be producing? Or what is it that is their responsibility to do? This, you can make them account by putting timelines. Again, activities differ in terms of how long it takes, but you will see, because you know the business, you know the business owner, and you understand their nature of business. So the communication of the assignment is also key. But now here's another item again for quadrant 2, the monitoring mechanism. Effective delegation works better if there is a way to monitor, and it also eases that pressure of worrying all the time that will they complete the task. So again, you need to make sure that they have developed systems within their business. I know all my systems are in my head, so I'm not all that wonderful myself because I'm an independent consultant, but I already worry about who will know how to track my invoices, who will know who are my debtors. So it's important as business advisors to also make sure that your clients can develop those systems at whatever level. There must be things, no matter how many drafts that they have, that can assist them to be able to make the people that they assign roles to account to. And if they've done this process, and it's a habit that needs it, that's why I call it a habit, because it doesn't come naturally to everybody. About that. What attitudes do they have towards assigning roles to other people? Maybe we'll hear through this platform, what are the things that people complain about? Or what are the things that people have made to be excuses for not delegating their roles? But I think the key thing is to make them look forward to managing their time better, to in their plotting to also deal with other areas of their lives, because burnout is also about not taking care of your health. It's also about not taking care of important things in your life, those things that are not screaming at you, especially family. We come across a lot of entrepreneurs who end up in business that they are still at very early planning stages of their business. They still can't even define it properly. And then they have to reprioritize finances. But because people are used to fixed salaries, sometimes they struggle to go through that process. And it becomes a huge issue of conflict between families. So do I still have enough time to continue?
Masha, you can continue, I think.
Okay, all right.
I think let's just
definitely not me.
I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but it looks like we've got a technology issue that's
okay.
putting us in.
I saw you leaving, so I thought it's something I said.
I think you said something so profound that the whole system fell flat. So I'm signed in twice, that's why. Great, so then we're back now where we should be. Apologies, guys, I'm not sure what happened there, but it looks like we had a little bit of technology glitch. So sorry, Nomase, if we can go back. I'm just checking that we have everyone in the room still. It looks like it.
Okay.
So apologies for the technology glitch. So I'm not, in fact, I'm not quite sure how far we've gone, but you were speaking about delegation, assigning to, and deciding to whom to decide to delegate when I last heard you.
I will recap that process just to make sure that it did come through to everybody. So what I was saying is that delegation on its own, it's not just handing over things to people without assigning responsibilities and accountability. It's not just giving them that last minute thing and you have not defined exactly what they are responsible for. So the first thing that us as business advisors needs to understand when you assess them, when you are helping them, is to make sure they understand that when you delegate to somebody, you are giving them new responsibilities, but you also give them authority to carry those responsibilities. That will also include skills, obviously. That will also include tools. So that process of when you are doing that assessment of your task list by order of priority, it will also involve what are the tools that are there, what are the processes that are already there, and then you can determine what do you delegate. Are you delegating it partially, or is it you are fully outsourcing it, or is it, and what are the things that are your own responsibility, so that the boundaries are clear then. And then you communicate the assignment with timelines. I think that is important to call people to account. And then you make sure that you also have the processes to monitor the progress for completion. Of course, this is not a straightforward thing because it's about the nature of the business, and some things are going to take longer to understand, and some things are going to be harder to delegate, especially if your client has certain attitudes. So I think the responsibility on us as business advisors is to be in tune of what are their personalities or what attitudes do they have against or for sharing their work. But they need to understand that when you give people to account, you are also building a trust. And the less you let people account, it's the more they will not feel as part of your business. So you want them to work with you, not just for you when you want them to. So I think that's where I wanted to get to when I was trying to explain the process of delegation as a completion of assessing their current realities and being able to see with certainty what are the things, how much time do they spend on quadrant 1, because that is the quadrant that is going to make you crash ultimately.
Yeah. Great. That is two very powerful tools. So if I understand prioritization, perhaps if during the webinar, Nomase, if you can type into the text chat, maybe some more leads that people can follow or resources that they can find on prioritization, sort of, because that's a really powerful model that you gave us there in terms of understanding urgency and importance in terms of how we plan to do the things that are going to get the results as opposed to those that are knocking on the door the hardest.
Yes.
And then delegation, I just want to ask you, sort of when you would sit with a client that say, oh, I don't have enough time, and start explore delegation, would you take them through that process to say which items can you identify to assign to whom? I got this clear kind of steps from you, in fact, sort of who to assign what to. Responsibility and authority must go together, sort of, if you can't make someone responsible without giving the authority to actually do this stuff too. And then you spoke about whether there's parts of partial or full responsibility and what the responsibility of yourself remains in that. And perhaps one of the most important things is the communication part of it, sort of to make sure that it's communicated well and that there are then processes set in place to check in on the progress. So how would you practically go around in supporting a client in that process?
So in the coaching space, I've taken this this portion of Covey. It's Covey and Merrill. The book is called First Things First. I've made it a time management program. So I'm able to run workshops in a groups of 6, not more than 10, going through the process. So the first tool there is that is available, and I will post a link later on, is a kind of a 26 part questionnaire that assesses people to show how much time do they doing what activities. So depending on the scores there, we're able to evaluate which quadrant are they currently sitting on. Then from there, because then the next process that I've created is that what are you doing when you are in that quadrant? Then they're able to assess, okay, this is what I'm busy doing. It is directed at the activities in that business. From there, then they should be able to assess for themselves the impact. So what is interesting, Christo, people that score very high there's a certain element of kind of adrenaline junkie going on there. There's studies that are saying that the same impact or effect that you get as a drug user is the same if you've really created that habit of being a workaholic. They get the same trail. So it's usually very shocking to some of them. But also what you normally find is that there's also a sense of lack of confidence within themselves, because then they have too many tasks, too many checklists, things that are to be done that are left undone. But the moment they are called into the emergency lane, that's where they will get that trail that, yeah, I've completed something. But if you would be able to assess there and show them, if you had spent more time creating the process, for instance, or showing your people how to do this thing, you will eliminate at least a third of the time that you spend on quadrant 1, because you'll find that most of the time they don't have time to go back and assess what is it that had put them into that crisis mode. It's always just crashing to crisis mode and to quadrant 4, because now you are flopping, you are tired, you just want the TV, and now you are waiting for the next urgent thing.
Yeah. So using that framework gives them a tool to start understand how they can move into the important quadrant and out of the ones that are getting them into trouble. So that's a great tool to have, so to make it visual to and refer to. And I assume, Nomase, that would be an ongoing discussion, not just kind of one session that you have.
It's an ongoing discussion. Out of the group sessions, then I have to set at least 6 sessions, because there must be enough time for them to assess themselves and to also see, because some of them, they may not have the capital or the required skills or the required people, depending on how far their businesses are at.
Yeah. Great stuff. So let's, Jurgen, I want to introduce you now. So if you can switch on your camera to talk about the Getting Things Done system that you are teaching entrepreneurs to use, and that hopefully we can learn from here today too. But before we do so, if you as participants can, in the text chat, indicate what the reasons are you getting, or excuses, if I can put it that way, that your clients are giving you when you start a discussion about delegation. Why do they resist delegation? And you can use the text chat to just type in there. I see there was some activity around some buzzing sounds and so on in the text chat, so I hope we've resolved that now. I also see someone has posted one question. There's another one, second one coming in as a question. So in the text chat, if you can just type in there, what are the excuses or reasons that your clients are giving you that they may resist delegation? And panelists, you can participate too if you want to. What are the reasons that your customers, your small business customers mainly, give you to resist delegation? There was, in fact, one question from Anonymous about they're saying they've got lack of confidence in themselves. So that we try to avoid. I think maybe let's there's Nomase is now muted. And I see, Carl, you're starting your artistry there on the slide as well. So this is a function in Zoom that you can actually annotate on slides, which it looks like you accidentally pressed. But yeah, so please, they don't trust their employees, says Lynn. By the way, I saw Lynn the week and she said they want to start a IBASA chapter in Zimbabwe. So we're looking forward to hearing about that soon. Kathy says the main reason is that it may be time consuming as well. They may find it quicker to do a task by themselves rather than delegate. So these are maybe some of the things that we can take into our discussion now. The big issue on my side is lack of awareness. I'm now starting an enabler program, says Gwyn. So that would be interesting to learn about what that program is about. And Techo is saying they are scared the employees will mess up the business. It's, okay, that's comments about the contracts that do not allow time. Okay, so it's a time issue for the staff themselves too. And the owner feel, Daryl says, the owner feel they can do better. Okay, so these are the kind of challenges that we come across when we have a discussion with our clients around how they go about or could go about in delegating. But let's move forward. So Jurgen, if I can ask that you switch on your camera and your voice. There you are.
I'm here. Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, so Jurgen and myself go back quite a few years. In fact, we figured out 9 years just now. And we were sitting around the BNI breakfast table once a week, sharing leads and most importantly, having an opportunity to do a short pitch of what we are busy with. And for me, that was quite an empowering experience, Jurgen. So great to see you here too, and adding to your tool set of things to do in your photography business, but also in the way that you now also teach other entrepreneurs how to use the GTD system. So if you don't mind, what is GTD about, and how does that help us in delegating and making sure we stay productive?
Absolutely fantastic. You have my slides there. So getting things done, the premise of getting things done is that you need to get to a system where you actually get the stuff out of your head, so that your mind is really there for having ideas and not holding them, as David Allen, the author of Getting Things Done, says. Because what happens with lots of us is that we try to keep track on the stuff that are happening around us, and we get easily distracted. And unfortunately, our brain is not designed for that. We can monitor about 4 things at a time. And if you add the 5th element, things get out of control. So you need to have a system out of your head that you trust. If you can just move to the next slide. And that's what we teach in Getting Things Done. And it's really about principles. The tools and techniques that we teach are not rocket science, but the way how you do them and how you implement it is important, also in the sequence how you do things. So you want to come to a place the way you actually have a full inventory of your items that have your attention, always accessible to you. So how many of your clients actually have an inventory of what they're committed to? And that's where I feel or experience also a lot of people fall down the wagon, is because they don't know what they all have committed to. And it's then very easy to overcommit because you don't know. Okay, I can easily do that. And then you suddenly end up with stuff like where people simply forgot about that. And I try to track it in the heads, sometimes on paper or the computer. And it's like information misplacement. And you don't have a proper system set up where you can find all the stuff. A lot of people also try to operate on to-do lists, write things down, and it's the keywords. And when I come across them, I'm like, what was it again? And I really gets a bit hurtful with their own list on what they're all committed to. And then they ignore the to-do list and say, without it, it's much better. But what happens is there is a lack of decision. You actually haven't made a decision about the things that you wrote down. It's just one of the key elements that we also teach in our methodology, where people actually need to make a decision. This item that I have on my list, or the email that I received, is it something that I want to do something about? That's the most important question. Is it something I can take action about? If I can take an action about, is it something I can do in 2 minutes or less? I can just do it. Or is it something I can delegate? Or do I capture it somewhere where I can actually do it as soon as possible, but I'll write it down so I actually don't lose track of that. There's obviously also things that we can't do any action about. I'm not going to go into depth of that one. So delegation is a very important element of that. And Stephen Covey's teaching is also closely related to what we do in getting things done. And it's all about giving our participants in the training opportunity to get more control and calm in their lives. And if you move to the next slides, please. It's not necessarily that you need more time. That's a thing that I get very often. A friend of mine always says, well, if I would have a 25-hour day, life would be great. But reality is, if you have 24 hours available, you will be able to fill it up very quickly. And you're actually not focusing on the stuff that you really want to achieve. You get distracted by those WhatsApp messages, the Facebooks, the emails that comes through. One of the things that we also recommend people to do is like switch off those notifications. And there's research that has been done on focused work. When you actually are working on one project, very focused, and you get one interruption. It takes about 21 minutes to get back to the point where you actually left that. And if you just like realize how many WhatsApp messages are sent every day, every second, and that about stats that I read, about 85% are responded to within 5 seconds. You see how disrupted our life is and how fast-paced we are. And we have to cope with that ever-increasing pace on that. So that's what we teach, and deal with the overwhelm that people have. And I made a note here on what came through earlier, just on the time. That a lot of people don't think they have enough time. It is about having the thinking space. If you don't have the stuff on the back of your head all the time, but you have it written down, you can trust, I'm gonna pay attention to that when the right time is available and I'm in the right place to do it. I can focus on that, but I can be here, I can focus on what the other one is telling me, and I can focus on my work without those ongoing disruptions. Yeah, and delegation is a big element of that. But as Nomase said, it's important that you do it properly, and you also need to be able to check in on that. And we have techniques that we teach in the training where people have like a waiting for list on stuff that they wait for responses from, things that they delegated, things that they ordered, and all of these kinds of stuff. So that's like the short of that. It is, as Nomase also said earlier, it's all about creating different habits. The things that we teach and where we know they work are change of habits. If you're in a habit of doing things in a certain way, it takes a while to move out of that. So I don't know if you ever rented a car and you have the control for wipe on the right-hand side in your own car and then the rent car on the left-hand side, you automatically will always go to the right-hand side. And it takes you a couple of range showers until you actually realize, oh, and this car is on this side. And it takes a while to build a system that you trust and get into the habit of using it and get success out of that. And yeah, that's where I want to wrap it up and actually pretty much open for questions and answers.
Yeah, so before we go there, so by the way, anyone that has a question, please put it in the Q&A, because if it's in the chat, we may miss it. So type your questions. I think there may be some questions about the GTD system. But before we go to questions, Jurgen, so the big message I get here is have a trusted system so that you can focus on the things that you're busy with and don't second guess yourself that you're going to forget. Is that the main value that I can get?
It's a very it's very important that you actually have a system that you trust, and you only build trust by using it. If you just write things down and you put it in a system and you never retrieve it and you never review what you actually wrote down, it's not gonna build the trust. It's like a black hole where everything goes in and then just like you forget the stuff again. You have to work with it actively on a daily basis and also on a weekly basis, where we go through all our lists and what we call do a weekly review. And that's the most difficult habit actually to learn, but that's where they build the trust. And then we got this calm overview on what's going on in your life. And that's just wonderful when you are in that position.
Yeah. So I'm not sure about yourself, but I started to use a tool, Evernote, as my main system to just dump things first and then organize later. Even emails started to go in there because I trusted that more than my email inbox. I'm not sure if you have maybe an example, even of yourself or of an example of a client that you supported. What does a system like that look like?
So we are tool agnostic. So that's a beautiful thing. So we have clients who are very happy to use Evernote, but the tool is not the system. The tool is just a tool. It's just like if you use an electric toothbrush or a manual toothbrush, it's important that you use the right technique to brush your teeth. And so Evernote is an option. There is a lot of people are very happy with Wunderlist. Many people use Outlook, and some people are just happy to use the paper system, and that's what you build, and we use that. But in my workshop, it's really the aha moment when people see, I put things in, I review it, I take it out of the system, I can process it, and I trust they actually do something about it when I actually write it down. Because many people have the fear, if they don't do it immediately, they will forget about it. But if you have an outside memory, that actually helps you. And it seems, Christoph, I just lost you. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Jurgen.
good.
I think there's something in the neighborhood here that I am, because it looks like my internet has dropped.
Okay,
and then
cool.
comes
So
back for some reason. So I think
I was concerned I dropped
the microphone. but
yes. Yeah, so it's really where people then came back to me, like after they practiced it for a couple of months. And then I had one client now, she was overseas on holiday, and she was quite fearful of facing her email inbox again, or she expected thousands of emails, which was close to reality for her. But just by following the system one by one, she actually cleared that, put into the right buckets, and was able to get on track very fast within a day. And that's also one of the things where we suggest that people actually, when I come from a holiday, take a day off where you actually just like catch up on the stuff that happened while you were away. Because it's unrealistic coming back from leave or big project that you're immediately ready for action again and on top of things. You need to actually catch up. You need to be giving yourself the time.
Yeah. So, and practical tools?
Well,
apart
tools
from your inbox,
are...
your email inbox, of course, is an important one.
The email inbox is one way of doing it, but there's Evernote. You can use Evernote. Nothing wrong. There's Wunderlist. There on the Mac side, there's a tool called OmniFocus. It doesn't really matter what you use. The best tool is the tool that you already use, because we don't want you to start with something and you use our methodology, getting things done, and then you choose a new tool. The tool is not the answer. The app is not the answer. The thinking, that's what you need to actually implement. And it's also the most difficult thing to do. Many of us look for an answer in an app, and the app is rarely the answer to solve our problems. If you don't use it, and if you don't use principles that are correct with that, it's not going to work for you.
Yeah. You know, I had someone else tell me the other day that it's such a daunting task to even think of starting a new system, that I'd rather keep going on the crutches that I have. And that was an interesting conversation, you know, sort of, because what if you just start a clean slate and, you know, sort of those things are all sitting there and they're imperfect. But if you start today with a clean slate and say from today onwards, the stuff that I am dealing with are going to be based on, so then you start with zero, and it's the first one coming in is number one. You don't have 5,000 sitting there that are waiting for you.
Yeah, look, I mean, the reality of our life is we already have all stuff. We have made commitments to our partners. We made commitments to our children. We made commitments to our bosses, to clients. Those things are not going to go away. So you need to build slowly, and you actually need to catch up on and get it into a system that you trust. And it's a process. If you do a workshop and you think you are done and dusted and life is just work over magic, it's not going to happen. It is a learning process and an adaptation process into a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
And that's the difficult part.
Yeah, I see Lynn Majada commented there that keeping things in your head slows you down, because you have to keep reminding yourself about it. While if you have it in your system, you can relax knowing it is there. You can focus on the task at hand.
Yeah, look, I mean, our brain is fantastic reminding us of stuff, but it reminds us to buy cat food at 3 o'clock in the morning when I really can't do anything about it. Yeah. It doesn't, but if I have it written down in a system and I have my errands list, I can just go, okay, my errands are today this, cat food, I need to get that. Because that happened to me in the past before I actually implemented the system, that I would wake up in the middle of the night and realize, I forgot to do this.
It doesn't help much then.
No.
But let's hear from whoever's in the room that's got a good way that they're dealing with it, or that they've been able to sort out with their clients. If there's someone that wants to come into the room, so I see Vinod has got his hand up. So, Vinod, I'm going to bring you into the room. Maybe you've got something to share with us. If there's anyone else that would like to come into the room and share their experiences in helping their clients to stay productive, to delegate, to use a system where they can know and trust that they have the right way of doing, then just put up your hand, raise your hand. There's that button, raise hand button that you can just press and we'll bring you into the room to talk. In the meantime, I saw that now that has been answered, it looks like. Lynn's comment has been answered there. And we don't have any other questions in the Q&A. So I'm wondering, you know, sort of, I'm sure there must be questions or comments. So anyone that wants to come into the room, you can switch into the presentation room, or you can just talk to without a camera if you wish to. And then we can take your comments on what you've done to help your clients to get more productive, to delegate, and applying some of the thoughts that we shared here today. But Nomase, if I can bring you in at this point in time. By the way, you're gonna, if there's a way for people to reach out to you, what would that be? Nomase, the same for you. Maybe you can put, if you don't mind, put your email address or
Absolutely.
a website or something that you would like to direct people to in the text chat, so you can have a look there. If you want to learn more about getting things done, you can call Jurgen, or if you want to connect with Nomase, if you can also put in, I know Nomase is on her cell phone, so perhaps we can ask Carol. Carol, if you won't mind putting Nomase's email address into the text chat, then she doesn't have to worry about that. There, Jurgen's already pasted his email address for you to reach out to him if you wish. Also, if you want to, if you've got an upcoming event, Jurgen, you're still applying your trade as a creative.
Yes, I'm doing it. My focus is to do getting things done full time. That's where I'm going to at the moment. I'm in a funny transition phase, and well, using getting things done helps me actually maneuvering that. Just like if you want to come to our website, gtdsouthafrica.co.za, we have a little fun test in there that you can actually see on where we are at the moment in your life. Just keep it that way. So got a short little assessment that's fun to do and gives you a little bit more of insights. And we have on an ongoing basis workshops all over South Africa. If you're interested in learning more about the workshops, please drop me an email, and then I can let you know when we're running a workshop in your region. We operate all over the country, and yeah, that would be the best way.
Great stuff. Great. So Nomase, you've got now the privilege of having given your input and hearing what Jurgen has to say. So if you have to give a practical tip for a business advisor when they get that question that we know now people give us, I don't have enough time, I can't feel I'm burned out, it's just going the wrong way. What would be a healthier way for us to approach that as a business advisor? So we may not necessarily be a business coach, so we may not have that full skill set of coaching someone through a process and so on, but we can give them tips and pointers. What should we do?
I think, well, because I'm a coach, I use a lot of questioning because the answers are usually within themselves. One of the most important questions that you could ask them is, what is the one thing, if they would do consistently, one thing in their business or in their personal life, it would create an impact in their life holistically. They know already what they need to do, but to have somebody that you are telling that, you know, I know if I could start doing this for my health, or if I could start doing this for my business, it would actually shift things. Then now you are able to commit them to something that they are looking forward to. So what is the impact of what is going on right now as a result of you not doing that which you are supposed to do? Then from there, you would be able to assess if it's something, it's a process that you can be able to take them through, or if you would need to invite them maybe for a coach, especially if it's I heard Jurgen was talking a lot about the mind, and that's a space that I like talking about as well, because everything that we are, it's about our thought, our thinking processes. So sometimes it's about embedded thinking processes from the past, certain attitudes. I saw some of the comments, people saying they don't trust people. Now, if you're going to run a business and you've got issues of trust, this business is going to be as big or as small as you are. So it's kind of prompting them with just the casual questions that they are not asking for themselves. then you'll be able to assess what tool can you recommend to them or what professional to assist. But if they can answer that question, it's always surprising what happens to them afterwards. Once they answer that question, if I could do this consistently, I know, because they do know.
So don't be intimidated by what seems to be a great challenge. Identify that one thing that can make a big difference.
One thing is, because these to-do lists are intimidating, and they make, if you keep on, and they get a lot, depending who they are, they get a lot creative in their minds, thinking if I start a new process, then you start the process, as Jurgen rightly said, that the apps is not going to help if the mind is not settled on exactly what am I supposed to be doing. And why is it important for me? In coaching, we like to use that why. What are you looking forward to? Why is it important for you? What will you get out of it? So I find that as once people have something to look forward to, and they can clarify it for themselves, not a should to, not something that they aspire to, things that really create their own current reality. Sometimes it's better to bring them backwards to say, I know you want this in 5 years' time, but right now in the next 6 months, what is the one thing that you know if you can do consistently? So creating these little chunks out of what looks like a big elephant, it's also motivating for people to complete things.
Great. So, Jurgen, there are some questions coming your way now fast. Tobogo is asking you if you have a list of recommended apps. So I heard you say that the apps aren't the important part in this whole picture, but maybe there are some pointers in terms of using of apps. And then Eric is saying that he would agree with you, Jurgen, that there's a lot of these systems out there where you might find that you lose time learning how to use the system. So in fact, the system actually sets you back in trying to implement it. Yeah. And by the end of the whole story, you're even more depressed about what the situation is like. So what would your comments be about that for Eric and Tobogo?
So on Tobogo, thank you for that question. We get that question actually a lot. And there are about 300 apps out there that are branded as made for GTD or for getting things done. The best app is the one that you use. If you're currently on paper, then please use paper, and really get the education first. It might sound funny, but read the book about it. We have Getting Things Done is available in South Africa in a normal bookstore. You can read the book. There's also an audio version of that. And if you only just start with some principles that we teach and start writing things down, that will already help a lot. And really use a system or app that is there. There's plenty of stuff out there. There's a lot of recommended stuff out there. Christoph mentioned Evernote earlier, works quite well for some people, or Microsoft To Do is another option, but really work with what works for you. Then Eric, yeah, it might feel time consuming to learn a new system. If you look at, I don't know if you're into Formula One, but it takes like when a car comes into the pit stop, about 2 seconds to change the tires, wipe the screen and refill the vehicle. That is extremely fast, but it takes a lot of time actually preparing that. So there's a preparation in place that you actually have the tires in place, you have the tools in place that you can actually do that, and you're well trained. So in the beginning, it might take a bit longer to actually get to that, but you're going to be able to move much faster. If you have your menu of things that you work through, and you just have a list of calls that you have to do, you can do them one by one fairly quickly. So takes a little bit of rethinking there, slow start, but then faster action.
Yeah, so it can be overwhelming so perhaps if one starts out to say, select something that's simpler than complex, select something that's accessible to you, easy to use.
Yeah.
Rather than, so if you have your inbox set up, use your inbox as a starting point.
Use it as a starting point, and yeah, and there's tons of stuff out there that you can use.
Don't forget that pen and paper also works.
Pen and paper, fantastic. Look, my favorite thing is I always have that here with me, pen and paper, sitting somewhere, waiting for something. I might note, and then the important thing is that you actually deal with that and actually go through what you note and put it into like your intro, and then process it at the
So
end of the
Jurgen,
day.
in one point in time, I was in an office with 4 colleagues, and we made this commitment to each other on a Friday afternoon after lunch, just after lunch, we would have our dump session. I mean, the dump session is emptying our bags, emptying all the papers and everything onto the desk, but we would do it as a kind of like a, we'll have a little competition going, because we didn't really like doing it. And we're going to get it done first. So sometimes to set a bit of a target in terms of just something like, let me do it quickly, or let me do it competitively against someone else, or let me phone my friend and say, I've done it now, have you done yours, or something like that could also help. We need to move on in our webinar. So I see that Vinod has joined us. I'll ask you, Vinod, to give us some impressions of what we've discussed here today just now, and you as well, Andre, if you don't mind. And I think they also have Lesego from IBASA in the room now, sort of the 3 of you, to just give us your impressions of what we've covered here today. But before we do so, there's still 2 questions. Lynn and Andile are asking about delegation. So Lynn's point is about constantly following up. What would be a good balance in terms of following up? You don't want to over check whether things are getting done. I think it's geared towards you, Nomase, this question, as well as the one from Andile. How do I assess as to whether I'm being realistic in achieving what has been tasked? Realistic targets when delegating. How do we get to the point that those targets can be set realistically? So maybe if you want to tackle Lynn and Andile's question as a last bit, Nomase.
Okay. All right. In terms of monitoring, Lynn, I would suggest that it depends on the task that you've allocated. It depends on the skill that the person may have and the time that it may take them to be confident to do it. So in other words, you will create a monitoring system according to the importance and the skill of the person involved. I know that sometimes this question is also as a result of something about the one delegating, something called trust, and also something called perfectionism, but we won't have enough time to go through that. In terms of the other question was?
It relates to allocating tasks that are achievable.
Okay. All right. So allocating tasks as well. Remember, when you are doing that assessment now, you are determining what am I going to delegate and to whom. In that process, you are also assessing what are they able to do, what are they trained to do. Maybe they are specialists in any case in their field. All they need to know is how things are done here. So you will allocate according to that. You may decide to reduce the level of authority. So in other words, partially they can do this up to the end, but you are accountable maybe to set the targets. If it's monetary values, they cannot exceed that much, but they can operate. So you create those thresholds for yourself, for them, according to your comfort levels of the risks of your business.
Great stuff. So I see there's still some comments that we can keep putting into the Q&A there. So don't close your Q&A window. So panel, please keep answering questions there, but we have to move on now. So just as a quick 30-second each comment, I'll come to you, Nomase, and Jurgen as our panelists today at the end. But we've got Vinod, who's the Gauteng chapter chairperson, and in the room we've got Andre, the MD of IBASA, and Lesego, the relationships manager at IBASA in the room. Just your quick 30 seconds summary of your impressions today. So Vinod, if we may start with you. You may have to unmute.
Yeah, thank you, Christo, and to all the panelists and people listening. I appreciated whatever Nomase and Jurgen have shared with us this morning. But for me, it's important that the business advisor that's advising a client is living everything he's telling them to do. That's the number one. The number two, he said, I'm a certified professional coach. I go and see my coach every 2 months. I'm also human. I get stuck in my this thing. So business advisors must learn to also go and get a mentor or a coach so that they can unpack their own challenges or their own issues that they're facing, because they're also facing burnout. They're also facing challenges, but you're going to the client and you're not looking very well, and you're looking like you're burnt out, or you battling for time to make for him or something like that. Giving that piece of advice really is the person going to look and says, should I really be buying this type of advice? So I think what's important is that don't do as I do, don't do as I say, do as I do. You know, that type of fight. I may have got it wrong, or maybe also doing it wrong. But I think it's important that we as business advisors need to be able to live what we preach or what we advise to our clients.
Yeah, and maybe we can create opportunities for us to be having access to each other in the field of mentoring other business advisors. But that's another topic for another day. So if I can move over to Andre, what did you take away from today?
Hi, Christoph. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Christoph, this is most probably one of the more challenging things for me, to be able to plan the day. I believe in whatever I have to do for the day, I will finish it. Whether it's in the evening or the next morning. So I am comfortable to work through a night, but it comes with cost. It comes at a cost. It comes at a cost with your family suffers, the people around you, and I think it is not sustainable to do it that way. If I listen to what Elon Musk said, that he works on an 80 to 100 hour work week, which is, now I don't know what model you're going to use to calm him down. So yes, I think sometimes it's very challenging, but it does come at a cost. And I like the fact that one can actually start managing your time, even though it's longer hours. But even if you can just reduce 1 or 2 hours, perhaps get more sleeping time, perhaps get time with the dog, walk out. That is far more a far better thing to obtain than just working through the night. So I love the methodology, but it's a challenge for me to really pull that thing in.
So you heard what Vinod said. Did he offer there to help you? I'm not sure. But yeah, Lesego, if we can go over to you. What did you take away from today's discussion?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you to our fellow speakers. On my side, I take that delegation is a personal principle. You have to begin first with yourself to allow yourself to delegate. I once read a book by Brian Tracy called Eat That Frog. And at any point in time, to avoid burnout, you must be willing to reach out and offer that version that you believe is critical to your business, but you feel comfortable enough to delegate. I believe every business advisor and every business owner should have a succession plan because it speaks to your aspirations. You will only be able to delegate as far as you see your vision for your business. I'll give an example. If you intend on being a listed JSE business, your level of delegation has to go through certain levels of your organogram. And if you're the original founder of your business, you should be able to foresee how many layers of employees or accountability that you want to put in. So the principle of delegation is based on the vision of the business as the business owner. As a business advisor myself, I begin every single day with a simple mantra that I speak to myself, dependent on the week, the month, the season. It's not always the same. I don't believe that if you woke up 10 years ago believing that each day is a new day, it means that in 2019 that the mantra is still the same. You need to assess what's relevant in your life. You need to assess what is profitable as well. A lot of people speak about well-being, but well-being also means affordability. What can you afford that makes you sleep at night? I personally have better working hours in the evening, but I believe the challenge for business owners and business advisors is what I call flexible hours. are you willing to consider delegation with the principle of flexible hours? If you're a leader, one must be able to infuse the corporate identity that you foresee for your business. And that should also be how you do your delegation. So from our side as IBASA, we're very clear, link it to what makes it profitable for you. So if delegating and you looked at what is important to you as a business advisor and as a business owner, that your health, your well-being, as well as the ability for you to continue working the hours that you value, prioritize your delegation to do so. If you had one unfortunate experience where you delegated and the work did not get done, it means that you need to make a principled decision that one negative experience does not become a constant experience in how you delegate. But you must address the conflict that arose from the delegation and get a solution. I know as a female, it's very common for us to be like, oh, I know you're not going to do it, so that's why I'm doing it. But we need to also give ourselves good habits. Habits that say, if I delegated, I will not take over the responsibility until the delegated work that we agreed upon is done. At that point in time, you also instill not only within your client as a business advisor, but as yourself, the right work ethic and the right deliverables. Delegation for me is definitely about making sure that you are clear about what your expectation is for what the delegated responsibility should really bring to the table. So that's my input from that. And I'm very happy with where we're discussing.
Great. Thank you very much, Lesego. So Jurgen and Nomase, I'll come to you to give us your final thoughts on how we as business advisors can improve the support we give our clients in not getting to the point where we feel we're going to burn out, and that we can get more productive in delegating and being on top of our own tasks. But before we do so, if you can, I pasted there in the chat, I'll paste it again, a link to a very quick, it's just a few questions that you can give us feedback on your experience today, everyone that attended. That feedback helps us a lot in planning future events, and we'll get to Carl now quickly also to share with us what we're planning for the 6th of next month. It's a bit quicker than normal because it's linked to an event, and there's some tickets to the event to be won by attendees in next month's webinar too. So keep your eyes open for advertising that, or you can sign up by this afternoon at a link that we'll share a bit later on too. So go to webinar-feedback.the-epi.org. It's pasted in the chat there to give us some feedback, please. But before we end up our discussion on our topic of today and go over to IBASA news and what IBASA members can expect, let's get back to our panelists. And I firstly just want to thank you guys very much, Nomase and Jurgen. It's been very informative. Perhaps the first step for many of us in getting to grips for ourselves to manage ourselves better and get more done, be more productive, be more centered, less stressed, and so on, and then pass it on to our clients too as a way of dealing with it. So if I may ask Jurgen, what would your final thought be very shortly on how business advisors can adopt this approach?
Yeah, I'm just very much with what Vinod said earlier. It's all about the credibility that you actually live what you teach, because you lose credibility with your clients very quickly if you actually don't live what you're teaching. And I think it's also very important to keep in mind that you make a clear decision about what you commit to and what you do not commit to. Whichever way you do, if you say yes to something, you always also say no to something else. And a lot of us like to say yes to many things and try not to hurt other people's feelings by saying no. But what damage do I create by actually saying yes to something that actually has negative consequences in the sense of I don't cope with all the stuff and I can't live up to the commitment.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much. And you've pasted your email address there, Jurgen, as well as Nomase's. Carl pasted Nomase's in there. So thank you very much again for the insights that you've offered us today. This is part of our CPD. So as IBASA members, please print out the confirmation that you'll get for attending this event, because that counts towards your CPD points. And of course that you need, because as part of maintaining your professional standing, you need to attend to CPD. By the way, if you're not aware, if you're not a IBASA member yet, it does entail assessment and putting you onto a designation. And for maintaining that designation, you need to be attending to your own development, which you can count these webinars to. So we have one coming up. So Carl, maybe if you can just switch on your camera too and quickly tell us about that before we move on to the IBASA activities in September.
Hi, yeah, thanks, Christoph. Yeah, looking forward to the next webinar that's been moved forward to Friday, the 6th of September. And that's going to be about supporting your clients to understand how they can leverage innovation as a growth strategy. The reason why we moved it forward is because the next week there is the SA Innovation Summit in Cape Town. And we will, in the promotion, we will include some tickets to be won to that Innovation Summit. So, and we have already the chairman, Audrey Verhagen, as a panelist for the next webinar, and just waiting to confirm one other. But I think, yeah, very critical. You know, we often think about innovation of starting something totally new, you know, talking about Elon Musk and those kind of people. But the question is actually, while we in the business, it sort of links to what Jurgen said earlier, also almost for me, to time management. You know, how do I innovate the way I'm currently running my things? I can't just always start new. I have actually to adapt what I'm doing, and how do I innovate that? And this is, I think, an exciting webinar to think about how can I improve my business through innovation and grow it that way.
Okay, and by this afternoon, you can go to that organic link that we have, webinar.-epi.org, and you'll be able to sign up for that webinar. We must just change the link because it's still going to today's webinar. And here, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but I'm starting to go blonde. And so I've got an excuse nowadays for forgetting things, which doesn't have to do with age, but the color of my hair that I have left. Nomase, I forgot to ask you what your final word is. So before we go to Andre and the team there at IBASA, the question of delegation and staying productive. Thank you very much for your contribution here today. And what would you say as business advisors would be your practical tip for us to take away today?
I think at the back of everything that has already been said, for the business advisors, I just want to encourage them to take time out for their own recreation. I think Vinod said it all, to just create their own realities and take a step back and assess what's going on, and just give themselves time to breathe, because it is in that space where you are able now to reassess things and reprioritize. The economy is bad, you are in the world of VUCA, and everybody seems like they need to be busy to be doing something. I think for me, if you get a hold of a vision, you just stay constant on it. It's the patience. So let's give each other patience.
Great. Thanks. Thank you very much for that, Nomase. I would understand, Jurgen and Nomase, if you need to go, but you're welcome to stay on. We're going to talk about shop here amongst our IBASA members. So by the way, if you're not an IBASA member, please become one quickly. It's important that you also confirm your professional standing in the marketplace as a professional business advisor. But Andre and Lesego, so Lesego, if you may switch on your camera. I'm not sure if Vinod is going to speak to you. He came in through the back door by putting up his hand, so maybe he's got something more to add too. I'm not sure. But at least Andre and Lesego, if we can have your videos on, and then we can hear from you what's up in IBASA and news and events coming up, or any other important things we need to note as IBASA members. So Andre, am I handing to you?
Lesego was on. Apologies. Christoph, I think from our side, we are very grateful to have speakers like Jurgen and the lady as well who spoke to us this morning, because we would like to be as relevant as possible in the market. We would like to be, from an IBASA perspective, we would like to be able to give to our members as not only relevant, but as useful tips as possible to be the best business advisors out in the field. And I think I would really encourage them, those who haven't become or are not members yet, that they would like to, or perhaps they can reach out to us. It's a simple process. Reach out to us and become a member, become part of the family of IBASA. And we do have the last month, I would say, we spend a lot of time on looking at strategies. How do we take the institute further? Where are we going to go? What do we want to do? And it's all about value adds to our members. So I would encourage those who aren't members to reach out to us. Thank you, Christoph.
Great, thanks. And there the details are on screen. admin@ibasa.org.za is the email address. And there's a process that you will get informed about if you apply for becoming a member. It's interesting, in the past, we've had about a third of people attending these webinars. It's free webinars. It's IBASA is backing the webinars by paying the bills for us hosting this. So we must thank IBASA for the value it's bringing for free, both to members and non-members. So the third of the people on the webinar here today are not members. But you can take that step today by just sending off the email and starting the process to apply and to become a IBASA member. I'm not sure what else, Lesego, you would like to share some news, or are there any other updates, Andre, between the two of you, Lesego and Andre?
Thank you, Chris. No, thank you, Chris. I think on our side as IBASA, what we've always emphasized is the professionalization of the industry. Do look out for more communication on feedback on the draft paper on the professionalization of business advisory. We believe that the stakeholders that we engage with, be it in the public sector as well as the private sector, one of the great mandates that IBASA has taken is to make people aware of the importance of being a professional in this industry. Be relevant, make sure that you are active in the space by not only speaking to your clients, but availing yourself to speak with other business advisors. I actually did like what Christoph said, where he said we need to get to a point where business advisors get to speak with other advisors so that we can grow the industry to become better, to become more competitive. As you're well aware, productivity is what makes any institution grow. But most importantly, in business, we believe that for our members, we want to be known as the best, be seen as the best. And that benefit definitely will rub off if we all come together as an ecosystem and work together. That's my input on that. Thank you.
Great. That sounds like a good note to end this webinar on. So thank you very, very much, everyone, for participating, our panelists and our colleagues from IBASA and everyone that attended. We still a whole lot of people on the webinar here today, making sure that we stay till the end and get all the value. So Wilfred, Vinola, Tokozani, Tetsu, Terence, Tebogo, Sylvester, Sahar, Rachel, Pilate, Pearl, Jim, Nurjan, Nolundi, Nelly, Modise, Michael, Louis, John, two different Johns, by the way, Isaac, Etisani, Gloria, Fred, I'm not sure what your name is, Francois, I think, Basson, Estelle, Eric, Cassandra, Silunga, I'm not sure what your first name is, Billy, and Ben. All the people still in the room, right to the end here, sharing the IBASA news too. So looking forward to see you guys on the 6th of next month. And by this afternoon, you can register. You also see that there's some promotions going out that you can respond to register later on. So have a productive afternoon, everyone, and looking forward to seeing you next month. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Christoph.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All the best.